of conscious reproduction of perceptions, and of associative reactions to them of other beings similar to themselves. All the same, it must be admitted that from their theaters, and from these contemporary actors of theirs, they obtained, of course accidentally, for the processes of their ordinary being existence, one not bad result. To understand in what this not bad result consists, I have first to explain another particularity which becomes proper to the common presence of beings who arise according to the principle itoklanos. In accordance with this principle, the forming in the presence of such beings of energy necessary for what is called their waking state depends on the quality of the associations which proceed in their common presence during their complete passivity, or as those favorites of yours say, during sleep, and vice versa, that energy necessary for the productiveness of this said sleep is formed in its turn also from the associative process proceeding in them during this waking state, which is dependent on the quality or intensity of their activity. And this began to apply also to these terrestrial three-brained beings from the time when, as I've already once told you, great nature was compelled to substitute for the Phulasnatamnian principle, until then proper to their presences, the principle itoklanos. Thereupon there was acquired, and there is up till now in the process of their existence, such a peculiarity that if, as it is said among them, they sleep well, then they will also be awake well, and vice versa. If they are awake badly, then they will also sleep badly. So, my boy, as during recent times they have existed very abnormally, then in consequence, that established automatic tempo has even become changed, which had previously more or less helped the proper associations to proceed in them. And as a result, they now sleep badly, and when awake are even worse than before. And why these contemporary theaters of theirs with their contemporary actors have become useful for improving the quality of their sleep was due to the following circumstances. After the need to actualize being partdog duty in themselves had entirely disappeared from the presences of most of them, and every kind of association of unavoidably perceived shocks began to proceed in the process of their waking state only from several already automatized what are called series of former imprints, consisting of endlessly repeated what are called impressions experienced long ago. There then began to disappear in them, and still continues to disappear, even the instinctive need to perceive every kind of new shock vital for three-brained beings, and which issue either from their inner separate spiritualized being parts, or from corresponding perceptions coming from without for conscious associations, for just those being associations upon which depends the intensity in the presences of beings for the transformation of every kind of being energy. During the latter 3 centuries, the process itself of their existence has become such that in the presences of most of them, during their daily existence, those being confrontative associations almost no longer arise, which usually proceed in three-brained beings thanks to every kind of new perception, and from which alone can data be crystallized in the common presences of three-brained beings for their own individuality. Well then, when your favorites, existing in such a manner in their daily life, go to these contemporary theaters and follow the senseless manipulations of these contemporary actors, and receive shocks one after the other from every kind of reminiscence already previously perceived, of not less senseless and absurd notions, then during this waking state of theirs they willy-nilly obtain more or less tolerable being associations, so that when they go home and go to bed, they sleep much better than usual. Although indeed these contemporary theaters, with all that proceeds in them, happen to be in this way, but of course only for today, an excellent means for the better sleep of your favorites. Nevertheless, the objectively evil consequences of these theaters for beings, and particularly for the arising generation, are incalculable. The chief harm for them from these theaters is that they are an additional factor for the complete destruction in them of all possibilities of ever possessing the need, proper to the three-brained beings, called the need for real perceptions. They have become such a maleficent factor, chiefly owing to the following. When they go to the theaters and, sitting quietly, look on at every kind of varied, many-sided, even though senseless manipulations and manifestations of their contemporary actors, then, although they are in their usual waking state, yet every kind of association, both thinking and feeling, proceeds in them exactly as they proceed during their complete passivity or sleep. Namely, when they receive a large number of accidental corresponding shocks for stimulating the shocks already fixed, and previously perceived and automatized in a series of impressions, and when they reflex these with the functioning of what are called organs of digestion and sex, then in consequence, obstacles arise in their presences for the proceeding even of those pitiable conscious being associations which have already somehow become automatized to produce in them a more or less correct tempo for the transformation of the substances required for that passive existence of theirs, during which there must be transformed substances required for their active existence. In other words, when they happen to be in these theaters, they are not entirely in that passive state in which the proceeding of the transformation of substances required for their usual waking state has somehow become automatized in them also, with the result that these contemporary theaters of theirs have come to be for them only an additional maleficent factor for the destruction, as I said, of the need for real perceptions. Among many other aspects of the maleficence of this contemporary art of theirs, one of the most obviously ignored, but for all the three-brained beings there, one of the very harmful in respect of the possibility of the acquisition of conscious, what is called individual being, is the radiations of the representatives of contemporary art themselves. Although these maleficent radiations gradually become there the lot or specific attribute of the representatives of all the branches of their art, yet my detailed physiochemical investigations definitely showed me that they are always most maleficent in those mentioned contemporary artists or actors who mime in these contemporary theaters of theirs. The maleficence for all the other of your favorites of the totality of the radiations issuing from them has become distinctly noticeable, particularly in recent times of their present civilization. Although certain of the ordinary beings there long ago used to become professionals, yet in former times, on the one hand, every kind of data for Hasnamussian properties did not become completely crystallized in the presences of all these professionals, and on the other hand, other of your favorites obviously instinctively felt the